Then baby being birth, yeah, that's anti-child.
It was actually when I was in law school. It was on a train between New York and New Haven. I think I was doing like law firm interviews or something. And obviously I didn't have kids then. And there's this young girl gets on the train. She's probably 21 or 22. She's, young black female. Clearly I could tell by the way she was dressed. She didn't have a whole lot of money. She had a couple of kids with her. And I remember like just watching her and thinking like, this is a really unbelievably patient mother. I mean, for being literally younger than I was, the reason I sort of noticed her is because her kids, like a lot of kids that age, are complete disasters, especially on public transportation. They turn it up to 11.
Oh, yeah.
But she was being so patient. But then like everybody around her was also noticing the kids being misbehaved. And they were so angry. And, they were and sighing and staring every time her 2-year-old made a noise. And that was sort of a moment that kind of stuck with me. And then, of course, I've had similar experiences riding with my own kids on various modes of public transportation. And again, it just sort of hit me like, okay, this is really, really bad. This thing that we do where we make motherhood or fatherhood, or there's this, again, I do think that there's like this pathological frustration with children that just is a new thing in American society.
Yeah, what's the motto of today's generation? Fuck them kids.
Bro,
they say that so liberally, it's like crazy. I'm just like, bro, where do we adapt this mindset? Like, everybody was a kid, obviously, to get to where they're at as an adult, like families, having kids, having babies is what builds a strong society. But bro, it's so crazy. Like, people liberally say it like, oh, fuck them kids in
honestly,
any way, shape, or scenario.
I feel like the main motto is I only do for myself. Like, I think this generation is so goddamn selfish. I mean, there's even leads it back to ours. Like, even our generation going forward is just so damn selfish. They don't care about anything outside of themselves. And that's why we have effed up families and communities. Because we don't care about nothing outside of ourselves. Like, let's be real. We're a more selfish generation through and through. And I'm talking about all, but I'm not even going to race base. It's all of us. Like, I say millennials and up.
I think it's very dark. I think you see it sometimes in the political conversation. People saying, "Well, maybe we shouldn't have."
Like, we got our good people, but
honestly, I think the mentality's been inbred into us. Like, it's not something that's natural. Honestly, if you really think about it, it's not a mindset that's natural at all. Like, fuck these kids, fuck a family. I don't want to have a kid. You got a rising amount of men and women feeling the same. Like, abortion rates rising, birth rates declining. Like, it's something that's a mentality that's been programmed, inculcated in us, low key.
Yeah.
And I'm not, bro. I hate to make everything a conspiracy, but it damn near seems like an agenda.
And I'm okay. Somebody said this, and somebody like kind of addressed this in the chat. Like, I'm okay with people having pets, but I hate when people like replace kids with pets. It's like
the only
reason you're doing that is because you don't want to fully give yourself to something else or to actually another, well, I don't know, sentient being. A cat's living. I'm just like saying though, it's like, come on now, you got to give yourself way more to a kid than you have to give to a cat. Like, actually, a cat can take care of itself without you. A kid, come on now.
When I've
like
used
being
the word
lazy.
sociopathic,
Yo, that one girl that sat down, my bad, just real quick. The one girl that sat down with Charlie Kirk, the one black female, she was cute enough and articulate young lady, but she exemplified the mindset of today's generation. She literally called fetuses
Parasites.
Yeah, parasites. Like a symbiotic relationship. She was like, they're parasites that feed off the mother and inside the mother's womb. I'm just like, bro, what are they teaching in today's schools? Like, remind me not to send my kid to one of these PWIs, bro, because like, what the hell?
And you know what people always say? It's too expensive to have kids. No, it's just we're not like family oriented enough to make it like less expensive. Like, bro, you see how these Muslim families, these Hispanic families have kids? They have hella kids, and everybody living all in one house sharing one bill. We have kids, and they go all over outside the earth and have all different types of problems. It's like, bro, we're not like, we lack unity as family in general.
I disagree. I don't think it's too expensive to have kids at all.
Especially, man, the Muslim families
there's
make
a
it
will,
work.
there's a way. If there's a will, there's a way. I think in a society of consumerism, if you want your kids to wear J's from the time they hop out the womb to the time they 18, if you want them to be in the nicest brands, yeah, it'll be expensive. It's expensive for you and them. But if you want to provide basic care, bro, you can do so. You can do so, and you don't have to be rich. You don't have to be upper echelon to be able to afford that.
Yo, you can still feed your kid fruits, vegetables, make sure he gets sunlight and all that, grow healthy, all that stuff. It don't take $1 million to do so.
And to that point, I think it just still revolves back to the point about today's generation and new parents being selfish. Like, you can do so without having excess. Like, you can do so without having like hella money. Like, there might have to be some sacrifices, but and think about our parents. They made more sacrifices than the current generation. Think about our grandparents. They carry shit on their back.
And some people honestly say it's too expensive because they don't want to give up nothing.
That's what I'm saying. It just kind of reverts back to the point of selfishness of today's generation. It just kind of dominates the mindset of today's generation. Like, ain't nobody willing to make no sacrifices, even if it's for their own damn offspring. Bro, but motherfuckers ain't trying to give up clubbing on the weekends to spend time with their kid, invest in their kid. Like, bro, that's today's generation in a nutshell.
Man, couldn't be me.
That, I think, is a very deranged idea. The idea that you shouldn't have a family because of concerns over climate change doesn't mean you can't worry about climate change, but in the focus on childless cat ladies,
so are you saying that women who don't want to have children?
Of what I said.
Sorry, I just want to clarify something. So women who don't have children because they're worried about climate change, that's sociopathic?
Yes.
I think that is a bizarre way.
Yes, it is, bro. I've heard so many women come up with that excuse. Oh, this climate change and I don't want to bring my kid. I'm like, if you don't shut your weak ass up, man, like, shut up, woman. This is why you shouldn't be thinking. I'm sorry, but when women say that type of stuff, I just feel like, bro, how dumb are you? We need these kids into the future. What happened if you birthed a kid that solves climate change? You ever thought that these kids are the new hope? That they're the new engineers, the scientists? These are the new hope. The hell you thinking? Like, what type of like negative thinking do you have about your life in the future? No wonder your life ain't shit.
Way of thinking about the future. Not to have kids because of concerns over climate change. I think the more bizarre thing is our leadership, who encourages young women and frankly young men to think about it that way. I mean, bringing life into the world has totally transformed the way that I think about myself, the way that I think about my wife, the way that I think, you watch your grandparents interact with grandchildren. It is like a transformatively positive and good thing for there to be children in the world. And if your political philosophy is saying, don't do that because of concerns over climate change, I think that's a really, really crazy way to think about the world.
I mean, we don't know why Kamala Harris did not have children, but do you include Kamala Harris in the category of women that you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, look, it was everything I know about Kamala Harris that I've learned about Kamala Harris is that she's got a step family, she's got an extended family, she's a very good stepmother to her stepchildren. I would never accuse Kamala Harris along these lines. What I would say is that sometimes Kamala Harris, she hasn't quite jumped over the you shouldn't have kids because of climate change. But I think in some of her interviews, she's suggested there's a reasonableness to that perspective. That again, I don't think that's a reasonable perspective. I think that if your political ideas motivate you to not have children, then that is a bizarre way of looking at the world. Now, again, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes people choose not to have children. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the political sensibility that's very anti-child. And again, I think that what really bothers me about the childless cat lady's comment, aside from the fact that, of course, it offended a lot of people, and I understand that, but it actually distracted, my wife had made this point, it's distracted from the core point of what I was making, which is that there is something very anti-family and very anti-child that has crept into American society. And you see it, I think, if you take your kid on an airplane, you see it if you take your kid to a restaurant and people, huff and puff at you. You see it in some of our political policies. I mean, go back to 2020, and I don't talk about this much because most Americans don't care about it. But when those of us who had children were really reacting to what I would call the COVID tyranny, but 3-year-olds being forced to wear masks and not even asking ourselves, well, okay, the main way that 3-year-olds pick up on language development is they see the nonverbal expression that comes along with it. Like, are we completely obliterating the language and social development of children? A lot of parents were thinking that.
And shout out Noah Joyner, man. Appreciate the support. The issue with trying to have kids nowadays in our 20s and 30s, getting a house costs $125 to $175K in taxation takes away too much out of most of us. And now, you know what? It's a good point, but
I think that's that mentality still kind of is inhibiting in the sense that, bro, you don't need to have it all together when you have a kid. I think you need to have a plan for sure, but you don't need to have 6 figures. You don't need to have $50K stashed away when you have a kid. Like
most of our grandparents didn't.
Bro, to be honest, like if you kind of look at it, like, yeah, that helps being established when you have a kid. Yeah, that's best case scenario, but that shouldn't inhibit you from starting a family, because what it is, bro, is a work in progress. It's not like you can't have those aspirations of improving your life personally, self-development, improving your family's life, and ultimately your kid's life down the path. But to let that stop you not having a 6-figure job, or you not having 50K stashed away, let that stop you from making a family. I think that mindset is inhibiting.
Yeah, that's why we're not having enough kids. Because I'm gonna be real with you, families come over here, they have like, bro, and I like to use Muslim families as an example, but nobody there making 6 figures. Everybody broke, but they're having all these kids, keeping it in the family. And what do their kids do? They go out and work later on. They work early. They go out there and progress. Something about our families is that we honestly don't raise them right, in my opinion. We don't raise them right. And honestly, I feel like we actually have more kids, we will actually learn how to utilize our kids better. And I know I'm not talking about, child labor, but man, I ain't gonna lie. Like, bro, my parents made having kids seem like a damn blessing. They made it seem like a blessing, low key. I don't know. That's just what that's my thinking is. But as far as taxation, all that goes, you can beat that. You can beat that with just the right family dynamic. If we're talking about the basic American family, yeah. But we're talking about a different family dynamic or a different family way. Well, look at how the Mexicans and the Islam people are getting it done. Like rich and poor, they do the same thing. Everybody in the same house, everybody sharing the same bills, all connected. Everybody can get money whenever they want. It's rich or poor.
And there used to be a saying, like, it takes a tribe to raise a child. Let's get back to that idea where it's community based versus everybody putting the responsibility on the mother and the father's shoulders alone. Like, I ain't gonna lie, it's honestly, traditionally, especially if you look at certain cultural backgrounds, like, it's always been by committee. Right, like you might spend a weekend with your auntie, you might spend some time with your grandma, you might spend a summer over here.
And bro, if somebody said, "Oh, you should be working at 15 to have to eat," I'm like, "That's what you were doing."
Oh yeah, bro, I was working at 15 and a half for sure.
Like, bro, actually, sure. You should want to have that installed in you early. Yeah, I have to work to eat. I want to start it at my child very early. It's like, yeah,
even if he didn't have to, honestly,
even if I got it like that, and I'm like, you don't have to work.
It's the principles of working for yourself, having to work towards something, knowing what it takes, being disciplined, following somebody's authority outside the home. Like, yeah, I would definitely have my kid working, like, regardless if they needed the money or not. Like, I was in a position where my money that I earned at 15, bro, I wasn't paying no bills. It was really just for lessons. It was for principles.
And here's the thing, though, rich or poor, you were going to come into this life with struggle. Rich or poor, you were going to have struggle in your life. Rich or poor, your kid was going to have struggle in his life. So it don't matter at the end of the day. It just matters that you're a good parent. Like, bro, life be lifing. You could have came, your kid could have came out rich, still have problems. You poor, still gonna have problems.
Oh, bro, to that point, said I'm not a good parent if we have some privilege, if we have some affluence, and I just raise my kid in a cushy ass life. I'm not a good parent. I'm not a good parent. I done protected I done shielded my kid from certain life lessons that should have been learned. Like, I done warded off certain experiences that he needs or she needs to low key make them producing member of society. Like, I don't care, money aside, like, you still kind of got to put your kid through the fire a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if you have to simulate some of those hardships, like, you may not have to literally push them off the cliff, but it is still your responsibility to low key teach your kid what it takes, like, to be a productive member of society.
Or your kid will never be independent.
They'll never be able to fend for themselves.
Yeah, and it's gonna be sad.
They're gonna be 30 years old and still trying to come back to mommy and daddy.
Sad.
Sucking on the titty.
We're not taking that parental perspective, and I think because of it, we responded to it in a disastrous way for our kids. Our education system, pretty much everybody will tell you that our public schools in particular, our kids fell behind in reading, they fell behind in mathematics, our toddlers fell behind when it comes to language development.
Bro, life is about struggle.
We have become anti-family in this country. I believe that. I think the data is very clear about that. You ain't
gonna be able to protect your kid from all struggles. You can't be with him at school. Way,
but the point still remains.
I want to talk about another big issue when it comes to women and families. And it has been hard to figure out what you and former President Trump would do when it comes to reproductive rights.
Sure.
Trump has said he believes abortion laws should be left up to the states. He sometimes supported a 6-week ban. Sometimes he's not supported a 6-week ban. He supports exceptions for rape and incest. You have previously come out in favor of federal restrictions in your campaign for the Senate, with no exceptions except to save the life of the mother. You said Trump wouldn't sign a national abortion ban, but then he said you, J.D. Vance, don't really know what he'll do. And in last week's debate, you did try to appear somewhat more moderate on the issue. It is all painting, I think, a very confusing picture.
Well, I don't think it should paint a confusing picture. I mean, look, let me just be clear, of course, on abortion policy. President Trump's view is leave it to the states. His view is, he wants any state to have the 3 exceptions. He cares very, very much about that. And national policy should focus, as I said in the debate, on expanding the optionality. Because again, I knew a lot of young women who had abortions. Almost always it was motivated by this view that that was the only choice really available to them. That if they had had the baby, it would have destroyed their relationships, their family, their education, their career. And I think that we want to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. We want to promote more people choosing life. And I say this as a person who wants to encourage young women and young families to choose life. But I think that there has to be a balance here, a balance between states that are making their own abortion policies. Of course, California is going to have different policies from Georgia, as we've already seen. And then at the federal government, promoting and increasing the optionality, the choices available, which is.
And I see y'all have y'all feelings on it. Look, if you want to get our true thoughts on what you're saying, just go ahead and super chat $1 in. Otherwise, just talk to the chat. And make sure y'all like the video, man. Double tap that screen for me. Let's go.
It's going to make it easier for women to choose life in the first place. And that look, you talk about being confused. I never came out for a national abortion ban, no restrictions. What I did, to be clear, in my Senate campaign is I endorsed the Lindsey Graham bill that had exceptions and that would have, after a threshold, I think it was 15 weeks, said with reasonable exceptions, after 15 weeks, that's a reasonable place to kind of draw the line.
You said in a podcast, I'm just going to quote here, that you'd like abortion to be legal nationally. That was on the podcast Very Fine People in 2022. And you've discussed the fact that people might be able to get abortions in other states. And you said you would need some federal response to prevent that from happening. I'm pretty sympathetic to that, actually.
Well, what Trump has said and what we've said on this campaign is states are going to make these choices. Now, yes, I said in a podcast, I mean, I don't have the podcast in front of me, but I'm sure that I said what you said I said. But that's just reflective of my view expressed in 2022 that I want to protect as much vulnerable life as possible. But we're in a different world than we were in 2022. Number one, of course, we now have this decision primarily thanks to the Supreme Court left to the states. I think that's where Donald Trump and I think it should be. But also, look, I've learned a little bit about this. And I talked about this in the debate. When the Supreme Court threw this back primarily to the states, what all Republicans should have learned is when you see people voting, sometimes even people who describe themselves as pro-life, voting for increased access to abortion, the conclusion that we should take from that is we've lost the trust of the American people. And, again, in 2023, I guess, we had a big referendum in the state of Ohio. I campaigned on one side. The people of Ohio, not like a super right-wing state by any means, but, a center-right state, certainly the state of Ohio, voted 60-40 to go in the other direction and to implement, I think, a much more liberal abortion regime than certainly the people on the other side were campaigning for. Well, what do you take from that, right? You can take the lesson that, we just didn't campaign hard enough. We didn't make the case hard enough. I don't think that's right. I think the proper thing to take from that is we have lost the trust of the American people. When we went out there and campaigned for our position, they instinctively mistrusted us. and we need to get trust back.
What does that mean, though? I've heard you say that, but I don't understand what that means.
I think it's by pursuing these pro-family policies. I think it's by making it
so
easier.
It's not by moderating your position on abortion.
Rather than trying to say that we're going to take options away from women, we want to make it easier for young women to choose life. Mm-hmm. But I think the way that you're going to do that in 2024 in the United States of America is to let the states determine their own abortion policy. Now, again, part of that is protecting the ability of the states to make these decisions. Kamala Harris wants to renationalize the abortion conversation, go in the exact opposite direction. President Trump are saying yes. President Trump and I are saying yes. Sometimes these issues are messy. Sometimes it's going to be a little unusual for, say, California to have a different abortion policy than Alabama, but democracy is sometimes messy. We want to preserve the right of the states to make these decisions. So you are
okay with women traveling to another state to get an abortion?
Yes, I am. You want to know why? Because that's democracy, and that's what democracy's led to. Sorry, ma'am. The women of that state voted against the women who want to go out there and do abortions. I'm sorry. That's how the state wanted it. Georgia said 6 weeks. The lady went past 6 weeks. She wanted to go to North Carolina. It cost her life. Well, guess what? If there was a national abortion ban, there'd been two lives that have been around. But hey, it happens, right? So yes, that's democracy. Like, I do feel bad for the young lady. I do feel bad for these victims, but that's democracy. Leaving it up to the state. These women chose it. Like I say, bro, y'all women got the wrong beef right here. Y'all beef ain't with Donald Trump. This is with the women in your own state that voted against abortion.
That is something that you would like to see preserved in this country. Yes or no? It's a pretty.
Lulu, I'm saying I'm okay with the states making these decisions. Now, you talk about what I'm okay with. Do I think that the voters of California are going to enact a more liberal policy that I might like to see? Yes. In fact, I'm certainly. I accept that as the reality of the state-focused regime that President Trump and I are encouraging people to take. Mm-hmm. Am I okay with it? I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I'm okay with the states making these decisions, even if they make decisions that J.D. Vance or Donald Trump might not make.
I want to move on to immigration.
Sure.
It's another place where you have had a bit of a conversion. You wrote a piece in 2012 while you were still at Yale criticizing the GOP's immigration positions. And in it you said, and I'm quoting here, think about it, we conservatives rightly mistrust the government to efficiently administer business loans and regulate our food supply, yet we allegedly believe that it can deport millions of unregistered aliens. The notion fails to pass the laugh test. What changed?
Well, 3.5 years of Kamala Harris didn't help, right?
I was about to say, like, you asking him about his position from 12 years ago, like, the issue has been severely magnified since then. Like, I would say a lot of people's positioning could have changed on it. Like, if you asked me 10 years ago, I mean, granted, I was 16, so I probably wasn't as politically aware as I am now, but yeah, I mean, it stands to reason my opinion or J.D. Vance's opinion in this example would have changed. Like, especially if you kind of consider when he said that in 2012, he was a Yale student. He wasn't a politician. Like, as he gained perspective on the issue, as he's seen it firsthand, as he's seen the workings of it, you know, kind of behind the scenes, like, yeah, it stands to reason completely that, like, his perspective definitely would have changed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Shout out Scotty83, $2. Ain't had too much to say. Just wanted to show some support, man. Appreciate that.
Hey, appreciate you, Scotty.
Yes, sir.
People illegally in the country. I think when I wrote that piece, we were probably
we don't know the number.
We were at 6 or 7 million. Yeah, I mean, look, it's an estimate, right? I think DHS has said it's probably 20 million. I think they're undercounting it for a whole host of reasons. But whatever it is, it's a hell of a lot higher than it was 12 years ago. And I think that what we've learned is that unless you're serious about deportations, you are never going to meaningfully enforce the border. It's just too easy to come here, right? So you need two things fundamentally. You need, whether it's physical or technological, ideally both, you need some sort of physical barrier, a wall, to make it harder for people to come here illegally in the first place. And you need to be willing to deport people, I think, pretty substantially when you have numbers that are as high as they are today.
How long do you think it would take to deport 20 million people? Because President Trump has promised to deport as many people, undocumented people in this country as there are. So what does that timeline look like for you?
Well, I don't think you even have to deport every single one of them, because a lot of them will actually leave the country willingly if you make it harder for them to work, right? So I think that you have to combine, and again, President Trump and I really think this is necessary. You have to deport a large number of people. There are way too many illegal aliens in this country. You have to reestablish some deterrence and law enforcement for people coming here illegally. I think it's certainly reasonable to deport around 1 million people per year in the United States of America. Now, of course, we have 25 million. So that would take a long time, 25 years, if my math is correct. But again, I don't think that you have to deport everybody, because if you reestablish some semblance of a reasonable border policy, a lot of those people are going to go home willingly. If you make it harder for American companies to undercut the wages of American workers by hiring illegal labor, a lot of those folks are going to go home. I've introduced legislation to tax remittances, because a lot of what goes on is that people come into the country, they make money, they send a lot of it home to whatever country they came from. If you tax the remittances, then people aren't going to come here to sort of try to work under the table to begin with. So again, I think the focus here is like somewhat off, because people talk about the logistical difficulty of making this happen. Well, again, we have had large-scale deportation efforts in the United States. I mean, look, Barack Obama, to his great credit, deported a hell of a lot more people than Kamala Harris has. So you can deport people in this country who are here legally. You just have to have the political willpower to do it. But if you don't do this, Lulu, I mean, what are you're basically saying the United States doesn't have meaningful border.
Yeah, low key, because I always keep saying, oh, what are you going to do? Just send these families and turn them away from their kids? I'm like, bro, if we got to be cold-hearted like that, then I guess so. But we got to uphold the law at the end of the day. It's like, bro, if one of your family members committed, like, I don't know, unalived an innocent kid, like, what? Would you not, lead the cops to him? Like, I mean, bro, it's pretty much what he's saying. It's like, bro, so what? We're just going to let them do, bro, we're just going to let these people do wrong and then feel bad about punishing them? Like, think about what y'all saying here. You're being too passive.
Policy. I mean, Mexican drug cartels have become the wealthiest criminal organization maybe in the entire world because of what Kamala Harris has done at the border. Not to mention, like, I'm a big believer in the social contract in this country. Like, I benefited sometimes from a generous United States government, meaning a generous United States taxpayer that made it possible for us to afford things that we wouldn't have always been able to afford. So when you bring in millions upon millions of people, you degrade and destroy the social trust that's necessary to support any kind of a modern support for poor people, food assistance, housing assistance. You are not going to have that stuff if you allow millions upon millions of people into this country illegally, and then they get to take advantage of it.
Well, let's say you were successful in carrying out those mass deportations. One thing that everyone agrees on is that more housing is necessary in this country, right? The reason that there is a housing crisis is that not enough houses have been built.
And that we have 25 million people who shouldn't be here.
Well, I mean, this is the thing.
I think it's both.
I know you do. I don't think that many people who look into this agree with you, but about a third of the construction workforce in this country is Hispanic. Of those, a large proportion are undocumented. So how do you propose to build all the housing necessary that we need in this country by removing all the people who are working in construction?
Well, I think it's a fair question, because we know that back in the 1960s, when we had very low levels of illegal immigration, Americans didn't buy houses, didn't build houses. But of course they did. And I'm being sarcastic, of course, in service of a point, Lulu, the assumption that because a large number of home builders now are using undocumented labor, that's the only way to build homes. I think, again,
the country is much bigger. The need is much bigger. I mean, I'm not arguing in favor of illegal immigration. I'm asking how you would deal with the knock-on effect of your proposal to remove millions of people who work in a critical part of the economy.
Well, I think that what you would do is you would take, let's say, for example, the 7 million prime-age men who have dropped out of the labor force, and you have a smaller number of women, but still millions of women prime-age who have dropped out of the labor force. You absolutely could re-engage folks into the American labor market. This is, I think,
to work in construction?
Of course you could.
I mean, the unemployment rate is 4.1%. Most people
unemployment rate, Lulu, this is important.
But most people who don't work can't work in the regular economy. They're in the military, they're parents, they're sick, they're old. They might not want to work in construction.
The unemployment rate
They might not want to work in construction.
Who says it's construction? There's other jobs. Like, why are you acting like it's only hands-on jobs? Like what, bro? We're also talking about, I guess, call centers. I'm just talking about warehouse. I'm like, yeah, construction's involved in there, but there's also office jobs that you could also do.
There's a reason
that these
she
older
brought up the
people can do.
construction job specifically. I can't quite remember what she said
Because
to
she's talking
introduce
about
that point, but there's a reason why she said construction specifically.
I don't know. I think it's just to try to introduce. Oh well, that would be too hard for them to do. That'd be too hard for our old and some of our younger people to do. I'm like, yeah, but there's still like what, call centers, warehouses, like, bro, fast food's still available, I believe. Like retail, like there's a lot. There's a lot that we can give to Americans, or we can like bolster Americans up to go do, but we don't. We just give it to the immigrants.
Not count labor force participation dropouts. And again, this is one of the really deranged things that I think illegal immigration does to our society, is it gets us in a mindset of saying we can only build houses with illegal immigrants when we have 7 million, just men, not even women, just men who have completely dropped out of the labor force. People say, well, Americans won't do those jobs. Americans won't do those jobs for below the table wages. They won't do those jobs for non-living wages, but people will do those jobs. They will just do those jobs at certain wages. And think about this from the perspective of an American company, okay? I want them to go searching in their own country for their own citizens. Sometimes people who may be struggling with addiction or trauma, get them re-engaged in American society. We cannot have an entire American business community that is giving up on American workers and then importing millions of illegal laborers. That is what we have thanks to Kamala Harris's border policies. I think it's one of the biggest drivers of inequality. It's one of the biggest reasons why we have millions of people who've dropped out of the labor force. Why try to re-engage an American citizen in a good job if you can just import somebody from Central America who's going to work under the table for poverty wages? It is a disgrace, and it has led to the evisceration of the American middle class.
So this brings us to another point, because the way that you discuss immigrants has gotten a lot of scrutiny. The Springfield situation in particular, where you talked about the Haitian immigrant community, which we should say they are legally here and allowed to work, and you spread a rumor or helped spread a rumor that they were eating pets, which turned out to be completely false. Off the back of that, there has been an enormous amount of
not according to the people Springfield, but okay,
hate,
They're still ignoring
turmoil
their cries.
in that community, bomb threats, kids not being able to go to school. Was the trade-off worth it to you?
Bro, that
Haitians said
There's
they were
a
going to
lot there
sue
that I want
Donald
to
Trump
respond
for
to,
his
but I want to
comments.
pick up on the overall attitude, because when we talk about, of course, we can have a conversation. I think we've had a nice, respectful conversation here, but sometimes you can feel happy about the direction of this country, happy about its people, and very frustrated with American leaders. This issue, more than any other, makes me extraordinarily frustrated at American leaders, because American leaders who are talking about Haitian immigrants who have no right to be in this country, and we'll get to that in a second, they talk with such compassion about what's happened to the schools, about what people have been unable to do. Where is their compassion for American citizens in Springfield, Ohio, who now, a community of 60,000 people, there are 1,000 children in Springfield schools who do not speak English. For years, I have heard from the American citizens of Springfield, Ohio, that their lives have gotten worse. Have we talked about the fact that
Like I said, man, this issue kind of hits close to home because, as I've said on stream multiple times, we operate out of Columbus. We're about 40 minutes west of Springfield. It's like the residents of Springfield have been ostracized in their own city. Like, this is already a small community. Honestly, it's not the hottest city in Ohio. It's a community, honestly, that's been plagued by poverty and drugs. I'll be completely honest. So to have an influx of Haitian migrants come in and low key compete with resources that are already scarce in the city, like Springfield hurting, bro. That ain't the city that can afford that type of surplus of people.
And then their own leadership selling them out only to maintain their property value is criminal.
And like I said, they've kind of had the city's governance and leadership has kind of had to capitulate to the migrant class, like hiring interpreters, kind of like prioritizing these people since they've been like at the forefront of what's going on in the city, like. And not to mention that I'm not even saying this. You can call me racist, call me xenophobic. They're not the best drivers. We have completely different driving laws. They've kind of, Ohio governor has had to send over state patrol to run street traffic in the city because it's been such a problem. So yeah, it is kind of funny that the media, the left, is really kind of ignoring the cries of the Springfield residents. Like, dog, cat, geese jokes aside, like, these people are low key. It's having an effect on the community, whether you people want to acknowledge it or not. It's having a direct effect on the community.
Yeah, but they're going to put a blanket over it, what, just so Kamala Harris can appoint, or just so they can hide their mistakes?
Many of them have been evicted from their homes, and then Haitian migrants are moved in, 4 families to a home, massively violating zoning laws. They get
They're
subsidy.
not moved in.
They get subsidies.
Yes,
They have been attracted there because they're working.
They've been attracted there to violate zoning laws, Lulu.
Yeah, they've been attracted to violate zoning laws. They've been attracted here to go into these temp agencies that's going to get them into these factories that were just built, and the factories are taking advantage and should low-key be held accountable only because, oh, well, we could pay these people less and we don't have to give them benefits. So, yeah, there's a whole little system going on in Springfield that y'all don't know enough about to be speaking on. Trust me. Like, and that's why us citizens of Ohio get frustrated because y'all act like y'all can say something, but you can't because we know these people.
Shout out Noah Joyner.
You got it.
Oh, yeah. It says, simple fix. A percentage of the 18 to 14-year-old able-bodied people should do the hard work and get paid well, while those who can't do that work in the other, so that the country runs smoothly. Yeah, I mean, facts. I mean, I would say we need able-bodied people in these positions anyway. We don't need nobody who can't physically keep up with the physical demand.
And that's the problem with having low birthing rates, too, because it puts more of the
working
work.
Class is older.
Yeah. And it's getting older and older, but so that's why we need to have more kids.
Yeah, shout out 614. That's where we at too, man. Shout out.
Appreciate y'all. But let's go.
Attracted there because they're working.
They've been attracted there to violate zoning laws, Lulu. They're subsidized by the local authorities, by the federal authorities, by your tax dollars. So now 4 families are living in a home.
It's a Republican-run city and a Republican-run state. Your state.
4 families are living, I'm talking about federal authorities, federal housing right now. 4 families are living in a home. They are paying way more for rent than an American citizen in Springfield can pay. So the American citizens have been evicted from their homes. They are finding housing unaffordable. They are waiting longer at hospitals. Their children are going to schools that are stressed because there are too many kids there who don't even speak the native language. I am so much more concerned by the American citizens of Springfield, Ohio, and I think that it is disgraceful that American leaders pretend that they care about these migrants more than they care about the people that they took an oath of office to actually look after. And when you say that these Haitian migrants in Springfield are legal, what you're doing is, I think, making an intentional bait and switch, because what most people think when they say legal resident, they think about somebody who comes to America, they get a green card, they come through the proper channels, they wait 10 years.
There's many ways to come to America.
Citizenship. But what happened, it's not just TPS, it's mass parole, which, by the way, has been challenged in court and is likely illegal. Kamala Harris has facilitated a massive amount of migration into American communities, and it is my job as a United States Senator, and hopefully as the next Vice President, to look after the people who are affected when you flood their community with millions, the national community.
You know what would be killing me too? Why don't these people do real journalist work and go out there and talk to the Haitian people instead of telling them that they're lying? Like, that is what's insulting about it. They don't even go out to this town. No liberal media has went out to Springfield and been like, yo, what's going on out here? Because they even know what the truth is. They just want to hide it from you because they know Kamala Harris's immigration led to it.
Talking about with millions upon millions of people who shouldn't be here. That is our responsibility. And I really don't understand the perspective of an American leadership class that seems to have so much compassion. And look, the 20,000
and those are Republicans too. I mean, Mike DeWine came out and criticized you, the governor of your home state.
I'm not talking about Mike DeWine right now. By the way, he endorsed us. But I'm talking about, you have 20,000 Haitian migrants. A lot of them, I'd say most of them, are probably very, very good people. But my compassion and my focus and my efforts as a political leader in this country, it is not for people, however good they might be, who don't have the legal right to be in this country. It's for American citizens.
Last few questions. In the debate, you were asked to clarify if you believe Trump lost the 2020 election.
Oh boy, here we go.
Do you believe he lost the 2020 election?
I think that Donald Trump and I have both raised a number of issues with the 2020 election, but we're focused on the future. I think there's an obsession here with focusing on 2020. I'm much more worried about what happened after 2020, which is a wide open border, groceries that are unaffordable. And look,
Senator, yes or no?
Okay.
Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Let me ask you a question. Is it okay that big technology companies censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which independent analysis have said it cost Donald Trump millions of votes?
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Did big technology companies censor a story that independent studies have suggested would have cost Trump
And pause
millions?
right here, because it's kind of a lose-lose situation for Vance. Either way, he would have answered the question. If he were to say yes, they would have been like, oh, see, you're just spreading conspiracy. You're spreading propaganda. Like, he clearly lost, right? Like, Biden won. He's been our president. But if he was to have said no, then they would have pinned him on that as well. Like, nah, he didn't lose. Like, oh, well, what are you saying? Like, oh, we don't have a clean electoral process? Like, are you questioning the authenticity of what we have going on? Like, it was really like he was backed in a corner. And
I like this answer, though, because he answered it with a question because it's like, all right, cool. You want to tell me that? All right, cool. Well, let's argue the evidence. Do you know the evidence of why I'm going to tell you no? I would hit it with that. Well, I'm gonna hit you with no, but are you willing to listen to the evidence of why I'm telling you no? If not, then you're being disingenuous about asking me this question. I'd have hit it with that. Like, if you're not willing to hear my argument and you're just looking for a yes or no, at the end of an interview is wild.
Well, on the yes side, I meant to say on the yes side, if he was to have answered yes, then they would have used that as ammo. Like, oh, well, tell your base, tell your supporters, like, that they lost. Quit with the narrative. Quit with the narrative. So again, either answer he would have gave, they would have low key had him squared and cornered, and that's exactly what she was trying to do by honing in on a yes or no, a black or white. Like, it's clearly a nuanced situation, and obviously it's a tired ass question. It's really, and the first answer he gave, like, it's not even about that. We're past 2020. Clearly Biden was in office. Like, let's move past it. What you even asking me that for?
I was like, what you mean? Y'all got it off, right?
Trying to catch him up really on the question.
I looked at that and I'm like, hey man, congratulations on the finesse.
Yeah, it was lucky a setup question.
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
And I've answered your question with another question. You answer my question and I'll answer yours.
I love it.
I have asked this question repeatedly. It is something that is very important for the American people to know. There is no proof, legal or otherwise, that Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election.
You're repeating a slogan rather than engaging.
Yeah, you see how she washed her words? She washed her words by saying there's no proof. She can't say there's no proof that the election was, tomatoed or, as they say, rigged. Are we allowed to say, yeah, I guess we are.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, like, she can't say that.
Allegedly,
she know there is proof. There is proof. But she, so you can't admit there's proof that Donald Trump lost? I'm like, no. What you really need to ask this man is, can you show me proof that the election was rigged? And then that'd have been an honest question from a journalist or an interviewer.
Honestly, if I was Vance, I'd have been like, this question is meaningless. It's senseless. Who's in office right now? Who did they say won the 2020 election? Like, who was inaugurated in 2020? And then, it's a senseless question. She's really trying to get him.
Bro, and then I've been like, if I tell you no, are you even going to listen to why I'm telling you no?
Nah, like I said, if she tells him no, they would have just used that as ammo. Like, oh, well, use it. Tell this to your base. Tell this to your supporters. Tell it to MAGA because they think the 2020 election was rigged. And if he was to have said, yeah, like, actually, I do think they would have just honed on that. They would have called him a conspiracy theorist and been like, oh, you're friends. Y'all are still going off that narrative that the 2020 election was stolen. So either way, he would have been low-key caught up. That's exactly what she was trying to do.
Gotcha moment.
With what I'm saying, which is that when our own technology firms engage in industrial scale censorship, by the way, backed up by the federal government in a way that independent studies suggest affect the votes, I'm worried about Americans who feel like there were problems in 2020. I'm not worried about this slogan that people throw. Well, every court case went this way. I'm talking about something very discrete, a problem of censorship in this country that I do think affected things in 2020, and more importantly, that led to Kamala Harris's governance, which has screwed this country up in a big way.
Senator, would you have certified the election in 2020? Yes or no?
I've said that I would have voted against certification because of the concern that I just raised. I think that when you have technology companies...
The answer is no.
When you have technology companies
you see how she's
censoring Americans at a mass scale in a way that, again,
Wild.
independent studies have suggested
see,
affect
see?
the vote. I think that it's right to protest against that, to
juvenile,
criticize
really.
that, and that's a totally reasonable thing.
So the answer is no. And the last question, will you support
Bro,
the election
she's
results this time
pressed.
and commit to a peaceful transfer of power?
Well,
Thank you for putting words in my mouth, but okay.
first of all, of course, we commit to a peaceful transfer of power. We are going to have a peaceful transfer of power. I, of course, believe that peaceful transfer of power is going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States. But if there are problems, of course, in the same way that Democrats protested in 2004 and Donald Trump raised issues in 2020, we're going to make sure that this election counts, that every legal ballot is counted. We've filed almost 100 lawsuits at the RNC to try to ensure that every legal ballot has counted. I think you would maybe criticize that. We see that as an important effort to ensure election integrity, but certainly we're going to respect the results in 2024, and I feel very confident they're going to make Donald Trump the next president.
Senator Vance, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was my interview with Senator J.D. Vance. After our conversation, we checked with the Department of Homeland Security on the immigration numbers he cited. DHS says there were 11 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. in 2022, which is the most recent official estimate. There was an increase of illegal migration after 2022, but there are no official numbers yet.
Bro, because they're
also
coming
asked
in
Senator
crazy
Vance's
numbers.
campaign for credible sourcing for his claims about Haitian migrants and zoning law violations in Springfield, Ohio. It did not provide any. And an additional note, Senator Vance's comments about the police were made in the context of a conversation about body cameras in the wake of the killing of Michael Brown by a police officer in 2014.
What's up with all this fact checking? I never see them do that for Kamala or Walls.
I wish.
They can get on here and paint any story, walk around any narrative, and you never see these moderators or these reporters fact check them. It's kind of funny. But I mean, like I said, bro, Kamala really doesn't say anything new. She ain't said nothing original since the start of her campaign. It's all taglines, slogans, and regurgitated statements.
Boy, man, look, man, she can give any answer and just get away with it.
Yeah, we're right into this, Trump, man. If you haven't already liked the video, Trump sat down or stood up for a rally in Coachella, California, man. Let's do it.
Let's go.
I'm the party of common sense. You know, we call it common sense. We're conservative. Who the hell knows? We might even be a little bit liberal, but you know what? We have common sense. We have common sense. That's what it's all about.
Nah, migration's so bad they can't keep up.
Conservative, but we have we do it the proper way, and we're doing numbers that nobody's ever seen. Look at these rallies. Nobody's ever seen anything.
Appreciate the support, guys. Make sure to like the video.
Nobody's ever seen. And we're fighting for hardworking citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed, right? And that sun is hot. I'll tell you. Should I or should I not put on the hat, the famous hat?
And shout out Joey Biden. I'm weak. Man, for the 99-cent super chat, we appreciate the support, man. Just wanted to just go ahead and support the show. Appreciate you.
Okay. Who wants me to put it on?
You got to at this point.
Who loves my hair and said you shouldn't put it on? All right, I'm putting this on. That sun is hot. Right. Tell me if it's nice and even. Right? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Wall. I love Mr. Wall. Front row Joes over here. Here they come. And we have the great women from North Carolina over here. Look at them. That's number 219 or something for them. They're wealthy and beautiful, and they have wonderful husbands, I think. I don't know. What are they doing? What? Here goes cheating. That's true. They're professional thieves. Today, California has the highest inflation, the highest taxes, the highest gas prices, the highest cost of living, the most regulations, the most expensive utilities, the most homelessness, the most crime, the most decay, and the most illegal aliens. Other than that, I think you're doing quite well, actually. Turn it up. We're not going to let Kamala Harris do to America what she did to California. We're not going to let it happen. So whether you are Democrat, Republican, or Independent, This election is your chance to send a message. Back home to mommy. She goes back home to mommy. Was that you, darling? And then she gets the hell knocked out of her.
What the hell is this man
Her mother's
about?
a big fan of ours. You know that, right? Her father, her mother.
Yo.
Now, you always have that. Now, tomorrow, here's the
Okay,
only problem.
whoa.
So we have like 100,000. We have a lot of people. You know, in Butler last week, we had 101,000. Can you imagine? Celebrating the life of a great person, a great fireman, actually, Corey. But we had 101,000. So whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent, this election is your chance to send a message to the world that the people of California are not going to take it any longer. We're not going to take it any longer. Kamala Harris got you into this mess, and only Trump is going to get you out of it. We're going to get you out of it. But by far, one of the biggest factors in destroying California has been mass illegal immigration and a governor that plays right into their hands. What a shame. What a shame. She got it started. Kamala got it started. Now she's saying, no, I'd like to see the wall get built. Oh, she'd like to see. Where was she 4 years ago? This just is new. You know, her poll numbers are tanking. So all of a sudden she's in love with the wall, which does work. Two things work. You know what they are? Wheels and walls. Everything else, you can have a brand new, beautiful computer for that beautiful young boy of yours, and in about 2 weeks it's obsolete. But wheels and walls never get obsolete. And we built one hell of a wall. We were going to add 200 miles more, and then bad things happened last time. You know, we got more votes the second time by millions than we got the first. Anyway, they took over, and that's when I realized they want to have an open border because they didn't want to put a little bit of extra that I bought, far beyond what I said I was going to build. And they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. Can you believe it? These people, they're so bad. And now they're realizing it works, and now they want to build some, but it's a little late for them because they're not going to be there very much longer, I don't think. You know, Joe Biden was the worst president in the history of our country. She's the worst vice president in the history of our country. There's never been anything, and we're not going to let her. You know, I beat Biden, so we have a debate. He went down, he was down. Like, in all fairness to him, he got 14 million votes. She got none, right? So he goes down.
Don't worry, we'll let the rest of y'all in later. But make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to get it back into the chat. Don't worry, it's just 30 minutes. You'll be okay. Don't worry for the rest of y'all.
Down, they said, we want you out of here. I won't do it. We want you out of here, Joe. You know, it was a coup. It was a coup. They actually threw him out of office. And I'm convinced that he likes me a little bit more, this much more, than he likes her. I'm convinced. I'm pretty well convinced. Across the state, which Kamala, or as she would say, Kamala, helped make a sanctuary state. Does anybody really want? You know what a sanctuary state is? That's a place where you keep criminals, right? Who the hell wants that? The mass migration invasion has crushed wages, crashed school systems. Your systems are a disaster. Wrecked the standard of living and brought crime, drugs, misery, and death. Now, over the past 4 years, Border Czar Harris has delivered the same nightmare invasion to every state in America as your vice president. I can't even believe it. How do you like the vice president she picked? How about that guy? How about that guy? I don't know. What the hell is wrong with our country? Right? Look, you know, we used to have the greatest Abraham Lincoln, George. Now look at this stuff. Can you believe what we're doing?
I mean, bro, states so rich, man, it put other countries to shame. I mean, GDP through the roof. Now